Okay, so today we are going to learn about object-oriented programming in Java. As we all know, Java is an object-oriented programming language as well as a concurrent language, and that's why it is a highly secure as well. And that's why many programmers prefer Java as a prime programming language for developing their applications. So we will see the history. James Gosling has developed Java at Sun Microsystems. Its earlier name was Oak, and it was released in 1995 May 20th. And first Java-enabled browsers for Java, and many JDK evolutions were released: Java 2 Standard Edition, Java 2 Mobile Edition, and Java 2 Enterprise Edition. And in general, Java is simple, object-oriented, distributed, interpreted. Java is robust, secure, architecture neutral, and portable. Java's performance is high. Java is a multi-threaded language, and Java is dynamic. So for executing Java, you need to download the JDK first, install it, and then you can create the Java program. From the command prompt, you can type Java program, and actually for compilation, we give javac programming.java, and for interpreting java programming.java. Actually, it is a mixing of compilation and interpretation. That's why we are doing this. So you can combine and do Java program in that way. So the anatomy is Java program contain comments, comment statements, package statement, and reserve words, modifiers will be there, statements, blocks, classes, methods, and main method. So we will see this is a simple Java program, class symbol, public static void main, string args, hello Java, system.out.println is a statement used for printing statements in Java, and for compiling we use javac symbol.java. The same program name take up the class name as well. And during executing, you don't need to give the extension. Simply Java space symbol. You can execute the Java program. The public keyword you have seen there, public static void main. So each and every word by word they are explaining what is the purpose. So public keyword is an access modifier which represents the visibility. It is visible to all the classes, all the other classes. Void main is accessible to all classes. A Java program can be a collection of multiple classes, but only one class will contain the main method. So this main method is accessible to all the classes as well. So static is the keyword used to declare the static method. The keyword static declares this method as one that belongs to the entire class and not a part of any object of the class. Entire class contains the static method. And the core method advantage of static method is that there is no need to create an object to invoke the static method. Even without creating an object, you can invoke a static method. Then type modifier void states that the main method does not return any value. And then main function is the starting point for the Java interpreter to begin the execution of the program. The main method is executed by the JVM. Actually, this is Java virtual machine which do the interpretation. And so it does not require to create an object to invoke the main method. In this way, it saves memory. Then string acts as the argument which we see. It is mainly used for command line argument purpose. In case if there is arguments, you can number them and give them. Parameter named args contain an array of objects of class type string, and system.out.println is used to print statement. System is a class, out is object of the print string class, and println is the method of the print string class. And println means it prints a new line character to the end of the string. So Java standalone programs. Java mainly standalone programs and the interpreter-based programs are there, applet programs. So applet programs are hidden inside the web browser, whereas Java standalone programs are written in such a way where it takes two steps. Compiler compiles the source code into bytecode using javac compiler, and the Java interpreter executes the bytecode program, and this bytecode program is interpreted by the Java interpreter and converted to machine code. Applets are small Java programs that run within a browser. Applet code is embedded within an HTML document and runs inside the web page. Applet located on a distant computer could be downloaded via internet and executed on a local computer using a Java-capable browser. So this is the Java program structure. Documentation section is there. Package statement is there. Then import statement. Interface statements are there. Then class definitions. So this is the structure, documentation, package, import statements, interface statement, class definition, and then main method class will be there. The starting point of execution in every Java program is the main method. So a Java program can contain many classes, of which only one class defines a main method. Classes contains data members and methods that operate on the data members of a class. On reaching the end of main, program terminates and control passes back to operating system. So I hope it is clear. Java program structure containing documentation section, which include command line statements, package statement, import statement, interface statement, and class definitions. Then only main method class. This is the structure of a Java program. Next, in Java, comments, documentation section include comments. Comments are different forms. You can either give 2 slashes or you should give the slash star and end with star slash. Multiple lines can be combined at the same time. Package. The first statement allowed in a Java program is a package statement, package name. That is the way how we declare it. So here is package student. Package is a keyword. It is a way of categorizing classes and interfaces. Import statement is used to load certain classes to the program. For example, if you want to load test class from package, you can import student.test. The import statement instructs the interpreter to load the test class contained in the package student. So an interface statement is like a class that includes a group of method declarations. A Java program may contain multiple class definitions as well. So Java tokens, the smallest individual unit in a program is token. As we have seen in C++, also keywords, identifiers, letters, operators, separators are included in Java tokens as well. Java character set includes Unicode character set. Unicode, it is not ASCII Unicode character set, and it is a 16-bit character coding system that supports more than 34,000 defined characters. And Java languages has up to 50 reserved words and keywords. All keywords are to identifiers are program designer tokens and used for naming classes, methods, variables, subjects, labels, packages, and interfaces in a program. Java identifiers can include alphabets, digits, underscore, and $sign character. Java identifiers must not begin with a digit. The same rules as in C++ apply in Java as well. Uppercase and lowercase letters are distinct. Then the keywords differ. Actually in C++ there is no keyword for package and exception handlers, but it has additional keywords in Java in both public, private, final for declaring constants, protected, extends class, threads, throws, catch, and continue. So many are there. Literals are a sequence of characters, digits, letters, and other characters that represent constant values to be stored in variables. And literals are also integer literals are there, floating point literals, character literals, string literals, Boolean literals, and non-literals are available. Next is operators. An operator is a symbol that takes one or more arguments to produce a result. So separators are symbols used to indicate where groups of code are divided and arranged. Parentheses, it is used to enclose parameters in method definition. Braces is used to indicate a block of statements. And brackets is used to declare an array. Semicolon is used to terminate statements, as well as to separate statements. Comma is used to separate variables in a variable declaration. Periods are used to separate package names from sub-package names and classes. The Java statements, different category statements are there. Expression statement, label statement. Expression statement involves pre-increment, post-increment, all kind of operators. And the labeled statement is statements beginning with a label. Control statements, as we know, selection statements are there, which connect with equals and switch. Iteration statements for while, do while. Jump statements, throw, break, continue, return. And synchronization statements are statements which allow multiple threads to share the shared resource. Then guarding statements are there, which involve try, catch, and throw. Finally, so try, catch, and finally. Guarding statements are specifically called guarding because it guards the program from getting crashed. It handles the program exception and protects the program from being crashed. Reserved words are also keywords that have specific meaning to the compiler and cannot be used for other purposes. You could not use any reserved keywords for defining your names. Modifiers, static, public, private, final, abstract, protected, all these are modifiers which state the properties of the data, method, and classes and how they can be used. Statements, as you know, it is a sequence of actions are given through statements. Every statement must end with a semicolon. So this is how we compile programs. First you write the source code and after that it will be compiled by the Java compiler and then it will release bytecode after compilation and the bytecode is executed by the Java interpreter and then the result is produced. So Java, during compilation we give like this JavaC program name.java. During interpretation we give Java program name. So here the bytecode, the specialty is that it can be even interpreted on Windows machine or Linux machine, it will be any machine. It can be, it is platform independent. It can run on any platform bytecode. So if this was your program welcome.java, then it is compiled in so and so manner and interpreted in so and so manner. This is another example of how we access class members. Class is the essential Java construct and class is a blueprint for objects. So this is how our example is written: class student int id, which is a field or data member or instance variable. Then string name is there. And then public static void main string args. Inside that we declare and created an object called student s1. And then we are accessing the members id using s1.id and accessing the name using s1.name. The class members, in order to access the class members, you need to create an object inside public static void main and then you can access these members using dot operator. A pair of braces in a program forms a block that groups components of a program. Here you can see we start the public class test, public static void main, and then we are closing the class only after the static void main. One class should contain main function. There is a rule. So here the class test contains main function. And this main, only after the main function we can even close the braces of the class. Closing statement of the class. Parts of methods are name of method is there, the type of value that the method return, parameter arguments if any, and the body of the method. So main method provides a control of program flow. The Java interpreter executes the application by invoking the main method. This is how the main method looks like. And these are the layers of interactions for a Java program. The layers are contained real machine, operating system. A real machine is the operating around being surrounded. Then it has an operating system and the Java virtual machine and Java object framework is there. And compiler and interpreter is there and user application program. This is how the user is interacting with the user application program. And the Java Object Framework acts as an intermediary between the user program and the Java virtual machine. And so here we are beginning how to write a Java program. So the import java.util.date, public class hello world. Hello world is the name of the program. And then you can see public static void main, string args. The main function could not be written simply. It should be surrounded by a class. That is the must. So here we are deriving an object now, which is from date class. So date now equal to new date and system.out.println hello world. And now what is the time? So date class retrieves the date, current date and time. So it is being displayed as shown below. Next program is command line test.java. Here you can see public class command line test and public static void main string args. Then count I equal to 0, string, count equal to args.length. We are computing the length of the string, and then we are printing the number of arguments based on count, because args.length contains all the arguments. This is mainly for command line argument purpose we are using. So it contains a count of all the arguments, and then while I less than count, it will until I is less than count. Currently I is 0. Until I become 8, it will continue this while process, and each and every argument is retrieved and stored in the string, and I is incremented each time for retrieving the next argument, and just printing the value of I as well as the argument at the ith position. So each and here these are the arguments numbered from 1 until 8. Simple, object oriented, distributed, robust, secure, portable, multi-threaded, dynamic. While running, it will display all the properties of Java. Total 8 arguments are there, numbered from 1 to 8 it will display. Next program is a program displaying program containing an exterior class. One more class is there, and besides the surrounding class of the main function. So our class name is rectangle, and it has 2 arguments, length and breadth, and one function is there, get data, where length and breadth are initialized. Inside that area function is there. Area function computes the multiplication of length and breadth and it return area. And then class calculate area of rectangle is there. Public static void main string args. Inside that area is being declared. And rectangle rect equal to new rectangle. I am creating the object of the rectangle class. And then using this object I am accessing L and B, and I am assigning them as 20 and 60. And then now I am trying to multiply rectangle dot length and rectangle dot breadth, and I am storing it in the variable area, and then I am invoking retrieving the area of rectangle as area. Actually here is a small correction is there. Here it is area actually. Area of rectangle is plus a, so it will return the area of the rectangle. This is another example where we define a constructor for initializing the data members of a class. So rectangle index into y, L equal to x, b equal to y, and in rect area, here rectangle is a parameterized constructor. Then in rect area we compute the area by multiplying length into breadth, and then we invoke class calculate area of rectangle. Public static void main, we are creating the object rect, and we are initializing the members directly. Earlier we could, without a constructor we have to initialize it this way, each and every member. But here we are directly initializing by passing the parameters 15 and 10. And then now we are accessing the rect area function itself using object rect.rect area. Earlier it was not possible. Earlier we computed rect.l into rect.b. Earlier it was not possible, but with the help of the constructor, now we are able to access the function using object. The function will have the values of L and B. In the earlier case, we didn't access it because the function will not have the values of L and B. That's why we are computing it inside the main function itself. But in the case of constructor, since we have initialized the values, the L and B will have automatically the values 15 and 10, and it will compute the area, and then it will retrieve the value as area of rectangle is 150. This is the advantage of constructor. It automatically invokes as a special number function. This automatically invoked whenever an object of its class is created, and constructor allows an object to initialize itself when it is created. And this is another example. Classroom is there, and inside classroom we can see length and breadth. And here also one constructor is there, where length is initialized with x and breadth with y, and area functions there which return length into breadth, and bedroom is there. There is another class, subclass which extends superclass. Superclass is room. And we can see height is the variable. Inside bedroom we are initializing, the constructor is initialized with x, y and z, and we are not initializing anything. Super xy is being called. What happens is, the call to superclass constructor must appear as the first statement in the subclass constructor. The parameters in the super call must match the order and type of the instance variable declared in the superclass. So automatically it initializes the values of x and y as in the superclass, and it will initialize height equal to z. Then volume is computed, where it multiplies length, breadth and width. This is our inheritance class. So here actually bedroom extends is a subclass or a derived class which extends the functionality of the room class. So inside public static void main we are creating object of bedroom. Subclass we are creating derived class room 1, and then we have initialized it as 14, 12, 10, and now we are invoking room 1 dot area. Means base class method is accessed, and then we are accessing subclass method room dot volume. So it will return the area as well as the volume correctly. Okay. So these are the, so inside subclass constructor you can use keyword super to invoke the constructor method. So this method actually invokes the constructor method of the superclass. Okay. There are three ways to initialize an object: through reference variable, by method and by constructor. By reference variable, this is the way. Here you have created student object, and using student object you are accessing the members ID and name. You are initializing them, and then you are printing them. The ID and the name, you are printing these members. Method overloading. If a class has multiple methods having same name but different parameters, then it is known as method overloading. Polymorphism feature is applied here, which is the ability to take more than one form. Function matching is done based on function name, number of arguments, and types of arguments at the time of call. So this is another example where classroom, float, length, breadth is there, and then we are invoking a constructor here, initializing a constructor where length is initialized with the value x, breadth with the value y, and then another constructor with a different argument. This is actually method overloading. Since many methods are created, two methods of different number of arguments. One is having two arguments and the other is having one argument. And then in area we are computing the length into breadth. So you are creating the objects. So first object invokes constructor 1, this one. And second call room to call invokes the second constructor. In this way to initialize the objects of a class. This is another function where class sum ToNum. This is the main class, and it has the three different functions. Functions all have the same name. You can denote sum, but the arguments are different. First one has argument integer, second one has argument double, third one has argument character. And then public class method overloading inside that public static void main string args. What you are doing is you are creating object of the exterior class, and then you are using that object. You are accessing all functions. Sum first, then in the integer sum first, then floating point sum, then character sum. This is all examples of method overloading. Next, inheritance. Inheritance, as you all know, is a process of deriving a new class from an old class. The old class is called superclass, and the new class is called derived class, subclass, child class. Child class acquire all the properties and behaviors of parent object. Reusability is added feature of the inherited class. Inheritance creates new classes that are built upon existing classes. Allows all subclasses to reuse the variables and methods of superclass. And inheritance represents a relationship known as parent-child relationship. So these are the types of inheritance. Single, where superclass inherits the features of subclass. Then again here this is multi-level inheritance, where class A inherits features from class B inherits features from class A. And this is hierarchical inheritance, where class B inherits features from class A, class C also inherits features from class A. So use of inheritance is method overloading as well as method overriding. Runtime polymorphism can also be achieved, which we will see in the later slides. So this is how inheritance indexes class, subclass name, extends, superclass name. The extends keyword indicates that you are making a new class that derives from an existing class. The meaning of extends is to increase the functionality of the superclass. Subclass will now contain its own variables and methods as well as those of the superclass as well. Then single inheritance, you can see an example. Class employee, float salary equal to 40,000, and I am extending the employee class program extends employee. Inside that I am creating 10,000 bonus. Now public static void main string args programmer p equal to new program, and using programmer p object of programmer I am accessing salary as well as bonus. Then this is another example. Animal is a base class and dog is a derived class, extends from animal. Animal has a function eat, which is printing eating, and dog has a function bark, which prints barking. And test inheritance, public static void main. You always create object of derived class only. So I create the object of derived class, and then using derived class object I am calling bark as well as eat. Next, multi-level inheritance. You can see animal eat contains the function eating. Dog is extends animal class, and you can see it contains the function bark, where it is barking, prints barking. Then baby dog class is there, which extends dog, which contains weeping. Class test inheritance 2. Inside public static void main, you can see baby dog class. You create an object of baby dog class, and then using that dog class you are accessing all the functions weep, bark and eat. Hierarchical inheritance, you can see animal contains a function eating, and dog extends animal, where contain barking function, and then meow, cat extends animal, contain meow function, meowing. So here we are creating another class test inheritance 3, public static void main string args cat c equal to new cat, and using the cat object you are accessing meow as well as eat. You could not access bark, because you have not inherited anything from dog. You can only access function of cat as well as function of animal. Method overloading. If a class has multiple methods having same name, but different in parameters, it is known as method overloading. If we have to perform only one operation having same name of the method, it increases the readability of the program as well. So method overloading increases the readability of the program. So the different ways to overload the method are by changing the number of arguments, by changing the data type, and as well as it is not possible, method overloading is not possible by changing the return type of the method alone. You have to change the number of arguments and the data type. So here is again another example of changing the number of arguments, class display overloading, and this has two functions, where one have an argument, character argument, and another one has character and integer argument. And in a class sample, we are creating the object of the outer class, display overloading object, and using object we are accessing these both functions. First one, actually function matching is done based on the number of arguments and the data type of arguments, as well as in C++. This is again another example where difference in data type of parameters allowed. In here actually the number of arguments are same, but only difference is in the data type of the arguments. First function have character argument, whereas the second function has integer argument. Here also we create object of the outer class, and then using that object we are invoking both the functions. Here matching is not done based on the number of arguments, but based on the data type of arguments. So method overriding, here if subclass has the same method as declared in the parent class, it is known as method overriding in Java. Means both parent class and subclass have same method names. Methods. Method overriding is used to provide specific implementation of a method that is already provided by its superclass. It's a parent class. Method overriding is used for runtime polymorphism. The rule for method overriding is the method must have same name as in the parent class. The method has to have same parameter as well as in the parent class. It is sharing an in-say relationship, inheritance. So here is the example. Class bank. This class bank, I am inheriting this class. SBI is so the superclass is bank, and the subclasses which I create as SBI, ICICI, and Axis. All these classes have functions, get rate of interest, all have same number of arguments, no arguments at all. And they all return different values. First SBI return 8, ICICI return 7, and Axis returns 9. So class test2 is the surrounding class of main function, and here we are creating objects of both SBI, ICICI, and Axis. And using each and every object we are accessing the rate of interest function. This is an example of method overriding. This is not method overloading at all. In overloading, function matching is done based on number of arguments and types of arguments. But here function matching is done simply based on at runtime when it is encountered, when the function call is being encountered, that the same function is being executed. So method overloading is used to increase the readability of the program, whereas method overriding is used to provide the specific implementation of the method that is already provided by its superclass. Method overloading is performed within the class. Method overriding occurs in two classes that have is-a relationship. Inheritance is a must for method overriding, but for method overloading, inheritance is not mandatory. In case of method overloading, different parameters are allowed. In case of method overriding, parameter must be same. Method overloading is an example of compile time polymorphism. Method overriding is an example of runtime polymorphism. In Java, method overloading can't be performed by changing the return type of the method alone. Return type can be same or different in method overloading, but you must have to change the parameter. Return type must be the same in method overriding. So final keyword in Java. This is how we create constants in Java. A constructor cannot be declared as final at all. Final keyword in Java is used to restrict the user from changing values of variables, methods, or class. So Java final keyword stops change in value, stops method overriding, stops inheritance. If you make any variable as final, you cannot change the value of final variable at all. A final variable that is not initialized at the time of declaration is known as the blank final variable. We must initialize the blank final variable in the constructor of the class, otherwise it will throw a compilation error. So here is an example. Class GFG, it contains a main function and final indirect. This is the local final variable I am giving, and then I am assigning the value 20. When it prints a value of 5, it will display 20. This is another example where inside class bike 9 I am initializing final speed limit as 90. But inside run method I am trying to change speed limit as 400. So public static void main inside main function, even though I create the object and I try to execute run method, we could not change the variable because we got a compilation error in the above because we try to change the value of the final variable speed limit. It's already set up as 90. We could not change that value at all. Here's another example. Class here blank final variable, final int roll number is, but however using constructor I am initializing roll number using argument, and then inside my method I am trying to print the value of the roll number. So public static void main string as, here I am creating the object of the class student data, and the object is obj, and using obj when I call my method it will return roll number is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is permissible, but the other one is not permissible. You cannot modify final variable at all. Here, since it was a blank final variable, you were able to initialize through the constructor. You could not, earlier we told final, you could not define a constructor as final method, but we can declare a final variable and then initialize that variable via constructor. Java final method. If you make any method as final, you cannot override it. Subclass can call the final method of parent class without any issues, but it cannot override it. So this is another example. Class bike final void run system.out.println running. Inside class Honda, I am trying to override function run with running safely with 100 km/h, but this will return a compilation error where it will say Honda cannot override run function in bike. Method overriding is completely disallowed. When you create a final method, you could not override that run method in another class. This is another example, class XYZ final void demo. Here no overriding is done. System.println XYZ class method, and I am trying to extend ABC. Here ABC is a subclass and XYZ is a superclass, and inside main function I am trying to create object of the derived class ABC, and then using ABC as object obj.demo I am trying to invoke XYZ function, but however it is not an array. Since I am not trying to modify its value or input, and it will display the output as XYZ class method. If you make any class as final, you cannot extend it. So here I have made a class as final, class bike, final class bike. And now I am trying to inherit from bike Honda. The features I am trying to inherit, and inside run method I am printing running safely with 100 km/h. In public static void main, you create a Honda object, new Honda 1, and I am trying to execute run method. So it will display as Honda cannot inherit from final bike. Inheritance is completely avoided, and we have already told method overriding is disallowed as well as inheritance is disallowed. Next is Java interface. An interface is just like Java class, but it has only static constants and abstract method. So Java interface is somewhat similar to a class, but it contains static constants and abstract methods alone. Java uses interfaces to implement multiple inheritance. So multiple inheritance could be implemented only with an interface, A Java class can implement multiple Java interfaces. All methods in an interface are implicitly public and abstract and include final data fields. Only abstract methods and final data fields are allowed in an interface. An interface is similar to an abstract class. All methods defined in an interface are abstract. Interfaces cannot contain instance variables. However, they can contain public static final variables or public static final data fields. Interfaces are declared using interface keyword. Interfaces are more abstract than abstract classes. So here you can see the declare min variables declared with assigned value 5 and print functions there. But compiler, after compilation, the class file will contain public static final variables, data fields and abstract methods. So automatically the compiler converts it to in the interface code. All variables are converted to final data fields and all methods are converted to abstract data methods by the compiler itself. So class versus interface. In class you can instantiate variable and create an object. In interface you could not instantiate variable or create an object. The class can contain concrete methods, whereas interface cannot contain concrete methods. It contains only abstract methods. Means implementation could not be included inside an interface. Class can contain full implementation details of functions, but interface cannot contain implementation details. Access specifiers used with the class are private, protected and public, whereas in interface only one specifier is allowed, public. So here interface example is being shown. The interface name is doable, and you can see abstract methods are there. No functions are there. Interface keyword is used to create an interface, and no method in an interface has a definition or a body. So this is how you implement interface. Public class something implements interface name. You can implement interface using implements keyword, and then inside that you give functions, all are public. You can include code inside this. It means a class is there which implements interface, and inside that class you can define the function, but not inside an interface. Earlier we have only declared these functions. These functions can be defined inside a class which implements an interface. Interfaces are implemented by classes using the implements keyword. If a class implements an interface, it must define all its methods. A class can implement multiple interfaces. Interfaces are listed in the implements clause separated by commas. So here you can see a class can extend to another class, and a class can implement more than one interface. An interface can also be extended to another interface. So implementing interfaces, here is one example. Interface area, you can see inside interface only final data fields is there. The final data field variable is pi 3.14 and abstract method compute. Compute contains float x and float y. Two arguments, floating point arguments are there. Then class rectangle implements area. So this is a class which implements interface, and inside that class I am defining public rectangle does return x into y, whereas circle which implements interface return pi x squared. Next is an outer class interface test. Outer class is main function, and here I am creating objects, rectangle, object of rectangle, not of interface. I could not create anything of instantiate object, instantiate, but I can instantiate circle and rectangle. So rectangle, new rectangle, circle, new circle. Whereas area, simply I am creating a variable, interface variable, and then I am initializing area to rect, which is the object of class which implemented area. And now I am trying to in this, print the statement area of rectangle as area dot compute. Now if I try to execute area dot compute n comma 20, it will execute area of rectangle itself. Again, next if I initialize area equal to circle, now if I try to print area of circle, it will print the area. Okay, here we are going to learn about packages. Packages are Java's way of grouping a number of related classes and interfaces together into a single unit. So inside a package, you can have a collection of classes and you can import them whenever it is needed. So benefits of organizing classes into packages are classes contained in the packages of other programs can be reused, and in packages classes can be unique compared with classes in other packages. Two classes in two different packages can have the same name. If there is a naming clash, then classes can be accessed with their fully qualified name. So this is how we access class package name dot class. So packages, user-defined packages and inbuilt packages are there, and inside here these are inbuilt packages: land, util, io, import java.io.star, import java.util.star. Likewise, we access each and every built-in packages: awt, net, applet. And these are all inbuilt packages Java provides. So Java long contains classes for primitive types, strings, math functions, threads, and exceptions. Contains classes such as vectors, hash tables, and date. And Java.io contains stream classes for input and output. Java.awt contains classes for implementing GUI, windows, buttons, menus. And Java.net contains classes for networking. Java.applet contains classes for creating and implementing applets. So this is how AWT package contains. AWT package contains so many classes for graphics, font, and image, and so many. Each and every class has certain methods as well. Each and every package have a collection of classes. Lang is another package. AWT is another package. All packages have several classes, and each class has separate methods. Accessing classes from package, you can access math function java.long.math.square root x fully qualified name. You can access this way. And import package and use class name directly. Selected all classes and packages can be imported as import package name dot class name. Import package name dot star. So this is how we import the package name. So in this way, this will import only a specific class inside a package, whereas this statement import all the classes inside the package name. So user-defined packages. Java supports a keyword called package for creating user-defined packages. The package statement must be the first statement in a Java source, right? So package, my package, this is a user-defined package. And I'm having two classes inside this package, class A and class B. Over my package name is my package. The code will be saved in file called classa.java because that's the first class in the package. And however, the package will contain both classes, class A and class B. Creating sub-packages. Class in one or more source files can be part of the same package. As packages in Java are organized hierarchically, sub-packages can be created as follows: package mypackage.map, package mypackage.second package.third package. Store third package in a subdirectory named mypackage second package. Store second package and map class in a subdirectory mypackage. So accessing a package, as indicated earlier, classes and packages can be accessed using a fully qualified name or using a shortcut as long as we import a corresponding package. General form of importing packages: import package name dot etc. dot class name. So example, import my package or class A, import my package or setting package. All classes or packages from higher level package can be imported as follows. Import my package dot star. So this is the first package, this is sub package. Of course, any number of sub packages can be declared. But however, we don't need that in our syllabus. Let us store the class code listing below in a file name classa.java. So for this is classa.java that contains the display function hello I am class A, and class B is also contained with it. Then in the next program class x.java, I will import my package dot class A. Class A alone I am importing. Actually two classes are there, but here I am importing only class A. And then inside class X I am creating object of class A, and then I am invoking object A dot display. So it will display hello I am class A inside class X program. So when class X.java is compiled, the compiler compiles it and places dot class file in current directory. Dot class is class A in subdirectory my package is not found. It compiles class A also. Note, it does not include code of class A into class X. Does not include code of class A into class X. Only the class file will contain class A's information. When the program class X is run, Java loader looks for class A.class file in package called my package. Actually, it is searching for the class file, not the program class A.java. It is searching for class A.class. And it loads, that package loads a particular class into this program. So let us store the code listing below in a file name classa.java. Again another program, second package, and it is having class C details. However, they are telling us to name it as class A.java. So I am renaming it as class A.java itself. My package name is second package. So now I am rewriting the program again. Import my package.class A. Likewise import second package.class C, and being asked to import class C to this class. The particular class file is being imported. Then inside class Y I am creating object of class A and class C, and then I am invoking object A.display and object C.display to display hello I am class A and hello I am class C. So public keyword applies to a class makes it visible everywhere. Apply to a method or a variable completely visible. Private fields or methods for a class only visible within that class. Private members are not visible within subclasses and are not inherited. Protected members of a class are visible within the class. Subclasses and also within all classes that are in the same package as the class. Consider an existing package that contains a class called teacher. So this is our package name, pack1. Public class teacher contains the class body of teacher. This class is stored in teacher.java within a directory called pack1. So defining so here you can see I am again defining another class, public class student, package pack1. So this pack1 will have contain the previous class also, teacher as well as the new class student. So store this in student.java under directory pack1. When the student.java file is compiled, the class file will be created and stored in the directory pack1. Now the package pack1 will contain both classes teacher and student. So extending a class from a package, a new class called professor can be created by extending the teacher class defined the package pack1. So I am importing teacher class from pack1, and then I am trying to extend the class teacher, and I am deriving it to the class professor. So body of professor called, it is able to inherit public and protected members but not private or default members of teacher class. This is another example of package. Let me calculate. Public class calculator contains public in the adding A into B, and it will return A plus B. Public static void main string args calculator object equal to new calculator, and system.out.println object.add 10, 20. So it will return the value as 30. Import let me calculate dot calculator, public class demo, public static void main string args, calculator object equal to new calculator, system dot out dot println object dot add 100 comma 200. So the result is 300. So packages allow grouping of related classes into a single united class. Into a single united package. Packages are organized in hierarchical structure. Packages handle named classing issues. Packages can be accessed or inherited without actual copy of code to each program. Next is multi-threaded programming. A multi-threaded program contains two or more parts that can run concurrently, and each part can handle different types of tasks at the same time. So multiple threads can be executed simultaneously, but it doesn't mean all the threads execute at the same time. They take their own portions, and then after execution they pass the control to the next thread, and likewise threads share resources among each other. The ability of a language to support multi-thread is actually concurrency. Threads are used in Java-enabled processes like Java. It is a processor who is doing the switching among the different threads of a program. So threads can be implemented as lightweight as well as heavyweight threads, but usually it is implemented as lightweight processors, and they share the same memory space. These threads are implemented using a run method. Thread working is initiated by either run method or start method. A class can be converted to thread by implementing the class using runnable interface. This interface has only one run method, which is defined by the code which has to be executed by the thread. So these are how we start a thread. My thread A equal to new my thread A dot start invokes run method. Class A extends thread public void run, and therefore and I equal to 1. I was negative 5 plus plus system dot out of println from thread A exit from A. So here A is actually thread A is asked to run in a loop. But what is actually done is thread A runs 2 times. After that it gives the processor switches the control to thread B. So remember all threads are implemented inside run method. The class A extends run thread. Inside run method we are executing thread A. As well as class B also extends thread inside run method we execute thread B. In class C also we have a run method. Inside run method we execute thread C. And there is a main class thread test public static void main string args, where we using start method we invoke different threads. New A dot start invokes thread A, new B dot start invokes thread B, new C dot start invokes thread C. And the function calls are to stop the thread A dot stop is being invoked. Likewise, to stop each and every thread, you have to specifically call each and every thread separately. A dot stop, B dot stop, C dot stop. To block thread sleep, to block for a specific time, suspend to block until further orders, wait to block until certain condition occurs. This is the output. You can see the thread A works for a while, and then thread B, thread C, then after that thread A again, thread B again, thread C again, then thread A, thread B, thread C. Each time the control of execution goes in different manner. It is not the same time. In the second run, it might be running in a different pattern. Concurrent execution is being done by the thread. So the life cycle is the thread will be in a new state first, and then it will enter the runnable state, and after that it will enter running state. In between it can go to wait state, and then it can go to dead state as well. After running also it can go to dead state. However, a thread which is under wait state will return back to runnable state whenever it is being retrieved, and then it completes its execution and then return. So an exception is a problem that arises during the execution of a program. When an exception occurs, normal flow of the program is disrupted and the application terminates abnormally. Therefore, exceptions are actually abnormal situations that crash the program and cause program to terminate in the middle. So in order to usually common runtime errors are division by zero, accessing an element that is out of bounds of an array. So exception handlers manage the program, manage the exception. So an exception can occur for many different reasons. Following our scenarios when an exception occurs. User has invalid data, the file that needs to be opened which cannot be found, the network connection has been lost in the middle of the communication, are all run out of memory. Some of these exceptions are caused by user error, others by programmer error, others by physical resource problem that have failed in some manner. So three categories of exceptions are there, mainly checked, unchecked exception and arithmetic exceptions. The checked exception is an exception that occurs at the compile time. They are compile time exceptions. These exceptions cannot simply be ignored at the time of compilation. Programmer should take care of these exceptions. Unchecked exceptions is an exception that occurs at the time of execution. Mainly program bugs or logical errors. So unchecked exception example is here we can see we are trying to print none of 5. Actually 5 elements are not there. So this is an array index out of bounds exception. Exception handlers. Exception handlers are try, catch, and finally. Java has a powerful way to handle such exceptions, which is known as exception handling. So programmer writes all code inside the try block. Inside from try block, it throws the exception is being thrown, and it is catched by the cache catches the exception being thrown. Only the matching catch exception handler will be catching the exception. So exception handling code is written inside catch actually. And the program is written inside try block. So in this way you can manage the exceptions by not terminating the program at the middle and disallowing the program to crash. Finally, block is always executed whenever an exception is whether it is thrown or not. Finally executes. Multiple types of exceptions are there. It can handle more than one exception using a single catch block. Here we can see catch IO exception or file not found exception. Both types of exceptions are being catched by the catch block. This is another exception. We will see the example, class example, public static void main string x and num1 num2, and inside try you can see 0, num2 has 62 by num1. So it is actually an arithmetic division by 0 error. System.out num2, system.out hey I am at the end of try block. Catch executes, we should not divide a number by 0. So this will be the code which will be executed, and outside catch system.out.println out of try class block in Java. This is also will be printed. This is actually the statement outside catch, because the class can be entered only at the end. So that way we can give statements outside the catch as well. Multiple catch blocks can also be implemented to handle multiple exceptions. Multiple exceptions can be handled by multiple exception handlers. When exception occurs in the protected code, the exception is thrown to the first catch block in the list. If the data type of the exception thrown matches the exception type, it gets caught here. If not, the exception passes down to the second catch statement. This continues until the exception either is caught or falls through all catches. So whichever is the exception handler, that corresponding exception handler can only catch the exception. Multiple exceptions generated by a program can be catched by the appropriate exception handler. This is another example. Class array5 public static void main in the a510 in the b equal to 5. Inside try block we will compute a of 2 divided by b minus a of 1, which is equal to 0. Here also it is an division by 0 error. So catch arithmetic exception e division by 0. Catch array index out of bounds exception e is also there, array index error. And inside finally Actually, it is more than it is actually an array index error. Actually, AF1 such an indexing is not there actually. AF0 and AF1 0 and 1 B minus AF1 AF2 divided by AF2 such a index is not there. AF2 is not there. That's why the array index error is the mistake here. Array index error is being displayed, and then finally the rest of the statements are included inside finally, where it will execute AF1 divided by AF0, which will give the value 2. So finally, statement can be used to handle an exception that has not been caught by any of the previous catch statements followed by try statement. Finally, block is executed even if no exception is being thrown. So with this, our object-oriented programming using Java is ended. Thank you.